All right, we are live. Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. Thrilled to be here. Dr. Jeff Moore, CEO of ICE, lead faculty for cervical spine management and lumbar spine management courses. Thanks everybody for having me on Fitness Athlete Friday. This is my first cameo. Zach Long actually jumped over and did Leadership Thursdays. So we're kind of switching it up this week, and I am grabbing Fitness Athlete Friday. Before we jump in, big thanks to Delta Physical Therapy for hosting us last weekend. What a great time in Baton Rouge. Steve Kristen couldn't have been more gracious host, so great being down there. And looking forward to Mayo Clinic this weekend. So I'll be over in Rochester. I'm hopping on a plane here in a few hours. I'm looking forward to cervical spine over in Mayo Clinic. And we are all gearing up for the ICE Sampler. As many of you know, the Sampler's coming. Tons of faculty pouring into Las Vegas. We get the curriculum all organized and we are ready to rock. Good morning, Dustin. So what I want to talk about today is this idea that it isn't all about CrossFit. So at courses, we are hearing now regularly like, man, you guys are really into CrossFit. And I love hearing that. Like, I think that really resonates a message of activity and of health and of philosophy. And I love hearing that. But we always hope that people's vision doesn't become too narrow, right? And so I want to kind of zoom out a little bit and maybe give some historical perspective on the company and help you all understand that it's not about CrossFit, it's about health. And that matters because it opens up a lot more variety and opportunity for everybody to thrive. So for those of you, I'm on the perfect channel this morning because I think on Fitness Athlete Friday, it's a great time to talk about, for those of you who have only been following the company maybe for a couple of years, right? Before there was clinical management of the fitness athlete, right? The online courses, the live courses, the certification, before there was that world, there was APHPT, right? There was applied prevention and health promotion. So before I ever moved out here to Colorado and did my first CrossFit course and really got into that culture, right? I was sitting in Michigan in my living room with my cell phone in my ear, listening to this crazy guy in New Jersey talk about these 5 elements, right? And how much evidence there is behind them and why we aren't incorporating them earlier, he will never know, right? And of course, that crazy guy is Mike Eisenhart. And that philosophy comes from Proactivity, which well predated APHPT, right? So it kind of keeps going back further and further. I mean, I was talking to Mike and the element approach, this idea of move, fuel, recover, endure, and connect, they've been using those elements for over a decade, right? And so this really goes back and back and back and back. And I want to talk a bit about those elements, circle around, talk a bit about CrossFit, and then really talk about why this entire conversation matters. So first things first, right? The proactivity elements that really is what we as a company embody, believe, follow, and try to spread the word of, right? Are move, fuel, recover, endure, and connect, right? And we know so much about all of them. And the past couple of years, I think that amount of knowledge has gotten even more dramatic, right? So when we talk about move, right? This idea of, are you moving enough and are you moving reasonably well, right? For those who are on hump day hustling, right, you've gotten a number of articles, even in the past couple of months, right? The systematic review from 2017, looking at all interventions for musculoskeletal pain. And what do we see? We see exercise holding that top spot for short and long-term gains. Plenty of things that are useful, but when it comes right down to it, exercise kind of holding that special spot is having both short and long-term gains, right? Many of you, whether you're in Hump Day Hustling or anywhere on social media, saw that Man Sager article from October of 2018 in JAMA, the open access article, right? Showing that there seems to be no upper limit to cardiorespiratory fitness as far as preventing mortality, right? The fitter you are, right, the better luck you have in longevity. Those of you who go to our live courses, you've heard about the Stamatakis article, right? In 2018, showing a 23% reduction in all-cause mortality, a 31% reduction in cancer mortality, right? Doing resistance training, right? 80,000 people, 9-year follow-up, 11 populations. It just seems like the more you move, the better and longer you live. And there seems to be a massive amount of evidence surrounding that. Moving on to fuel, right? I think it's pretty fair to say that processed sugar is a real drag, right? That processed sugar is something that reduces your thrive in life. We talk about inflammatory markers, right? We talk about energy levels, and we just know that fueling in a way that incorporates a fair amount of fiber that avoids sugar. I love when Mike says, just eat more plants, right? Don't eat only plants. No one's trying to make that point, but get more plants in your diet. They're high in fiber and low in sugar, and that seems to be an across the board, well evidence-based, reasonable piece of guidance for somebody trying to live a healthier life. Right? We talk about recovery, right? How often have we talked about Matthew Walker's book, whether it's on this podcast or in one of our courses in the APHPT curriculum? If you have not read Why We Sleep yet, get that on your list. Hey, what's up, Will? Good to see you, man. Dude, no doubt about processed sugar keeping you down. Will Boyd just jumped into the comments for those who are listening on the podcast, right? So get that on your list. Why We Sleep. I can't think of a book in the past 5 years that when I'm sitting with a patient, I'm thinking about the 40 minutes that I have. I can't think about a book that has gotten me over that line of, should I spend some time talking about this? Like that book has with sleep. Right. Now, that is not to knock all the, I want to mention right now that Katie Siangsakon's incredible contributions to our profession and certainly to my practice have been gigantic. And that book was yet one more stimulus that has gotten me to the point where it's like, no, we're going to bring this up. I'm at least going to ask you, like, how are you sleeping? Was there any correlation between changes in your sleep and the onset of what you're perceiving as this musculoskeletal pain? And getting into these conversations that have opened up doors, especially on people who have chronic pain. So again, for those that go to our live courses, our lumbar course, you've heard that hour-long sleep lecture. But if you haven't, I hope that everyone's beginning to appreciate that this relationship between a lack of quantity and quality of sleep, right, an increase in spontaneous pain and chronic pain is a real one. So if you're struggling with some patients, right, and they have chronic pain, and you're having a hard time moving them forward, you're doing manual therapy, you're doing exercise, you're trying to get in there and make changes, and you're doing therapeutic neuroscience education, laterality training, you're doing all your stuff, and it's just not budging. I would really encourage you to ask about recovery, because sometimes no matter what you do, if your system is not processing external stimuli well, right, you're going to have a heck of a hard time getting that person out of the weeds. And what we now know is that sleep seems to have a really strong role in that processing. Think about the power if we can change the way somebody's nervous system is processing the external environment. We haven't made their shoulder better, we've made their life better. So think about recovery and the importance that plays. And again, if you haven't read the book, certainly if you're not following at Katie Sleep PT, maybe there's a couple of changes right there that you could make to really improve your professional practice. So that's move and fuel, recover. And then we have endure and connect, right? With endure, we talk about resilience, right? Are you able to face life without leaning back on crutches, of substance abuse and feeling as though you don't have adequate resources? How great is Ash James's site, right? For those of you who don't know Ashley James, our friend over in the UK, Physio, the Resilience Physio, check out some of those blogs talking about resilience and grit and the importance of that really leading to recovery into a healthier life. And then, of course, we have connect. Right? In the relationship between social isolation and people failing to thrive, right? We're pack animals. It's just the way it is. We do better in groups. We do better with support, right? And there's plenty in APHPT and workplace. We are forever sharing articles about that concept and about the importance of getting those that are having a hard time, getting them that feeling of support and getting them those resources so they feel as though they are ready to take things on because they're doing it as a group, not as an individual. Folks, from our world, it's really about the elements. And we deeply thank APHPT and Proactivity before that for showing us that very early in the company that the elements of move, fuel, recover, endure, connect not only have a massive amount of literature behind them and research support, but they are incredibly practical to incorporate into everybody's life to improve the quality of that. Now, to tie in the CrossFit relationship, right, and to see how our company has kind of embraced that whole world, think about the relationship, think about the comparison and correlation here. So think about what CrossFit's all about and think about move, fuel, recover, endure, connect, right? Think about CrossFit and move. I can tell you one thing, I have never met a group of folks who are moving more. I was cracking up. I was talking to Alan our COO a while ago, and he said, I'm just so impressed by the CrossFit community, not only in the gym, but everywhere in their life. They're always moving. They're always doing stuff because they have fully embodied the fact that movement is such a foundational and important part of a healthy life. So they're moving not only in the gym, but everywhere in their life, right? You think about fuel. Right? You think about meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, a little bit of starch, and no sugar. You think about the diet that CrossFit espouses, and there at the bottom of it, right, is no sugar, an absence of sugar. And we talk all the time with that fuel connection of getting rid of that processed sugar. We think about recover. I don't know a group that has a higher percentage of folks wearing something on their wrist or on their finger that tracks the quantity and quality of their sleep, like my CrossFit folks do, right? Everybody's tracking that because they know the relationship between recovery and performance. So you've got a group of folks who are always talking about, what are you guys doing to sleep better? And what are some tactics that I can use? Everybody in that box wants to recover better so they can perform better. Think about endure. For those of you who did 19.1, maybe you don't want to think about endure, right? But again, I don't know a place where endure and grit is being pushed harder than inside of the box, right? Going up against AMRAPs and WODs that you're like, dude, I just don't know if I can make it through. But there's your coach just push you. There's your buddies pushing you, right? And you're trying to endure and you're learning to endure inside of the box so you can do it outside of the box, right? And developing that grit. And finally, connect. If there's one thing that we can say about CrossFit that we appreciate is no matter what box we drop into, and I drop into literally dozens a year because I travel constantly, everybody embraces you. And you can feel that element of family in those gyms where those are your that's your workout crew. Like they expect you to be there, right? And if you're not there, they're going to hit you up with that call of, hey man, where you at? I know you're in town. Why aren't you here? Right? So that connect of having your people that you're around pushing you that you can lean on, that connect being such an important one of the 5 elements. So I hope what you begin to appreciate, right, is that across the 5 elements, we have just found a tremendous match in CrossFit. Right? When we look at move, fuel, recover, endure, connect, we just see parallels that are perfect to a point that we can embrace them with kind of our full passion. But what I want to say before we log off is that it's not about CrossFit. It's about health. And it's far bigger than that. And it can be done anywhere. So the only concern I have when folks are like, you guys are really into CrossFit, I love that for all the parallels I just mentioned. But I do want to say that it's not just about CrossFit. You can move, fuel, recover, endure, and connect anywhere in your life. Right? I mean, I grew up in a really health cultured family. And I think about why I felt health was so important so early. And I think about my mom hitting up aerobics once or twice a day. She loved going there. And looking back on it now, I see all the elements there. I see the movement. I see the fuel. After their aerobics, they always had these protein shakes in this cafe there, and they all partook in that. I think about the connect, and all these gals were always in the hallway laughing and connecting. All of the elements were there. Right? I think about so many things that we can do to incorporate all of those. And when you realize it's really about those elements of healthy living, not one given dogma, you can take whatever you're doing and add in the missing components. Right? If you're a runner and you're always running alone, maybe jumping into a running group and adding in some connect. If you're a runner who's always doing a 5K, kind of a slow jog, and you're not really enduring or gritting it out, maybe you begin working in some interval training so you're pushing yourself and challenging that endure or that grit component. So what I'm saying is once you understand it's about the elements, not about any given dogma that does a good job with them, you can look at your own life and you can find a way to work them in regardless of your setting. It is and, not, or, only, always. And I think that's the one overarching point that I want you to think about. It's not about CrossFit, it's about health. And let the elements guide you on your journey. So thank you for having me on Fitness Athlete Friday. You probably won't see a whole lot of me on here. Really, I think the guys are doing an amazing job of leading this section. You'll find me over on Thursdays on leadership, and certainly you'll find me at the ice sampler. So first weekend of April, folks, we are 4 weeks away. Zach Long recently shared a piece about, yesterday and then even previous of that, a piece about marketing. He is going to put on a nice show talking about how physios should be marketing in Vegas at the sampler on top of an endless number of sections. We hope to see you there. ptonice.com as always. Folks, have a killer Friday. Not used to saying that. My plane leaves in a few hours. Mayo Clinic, here we come. Take care, everybody. Thanks for being here.